and welcome back to your Puppy Blueprint, where you can stop guessing, wondering, and Googling how to have a well-behaved puppy and discover how to turn the chaos to calm. I'm your host, Kelly Fahey, and today we're doing things a little bit differently. I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Ness Jones, and she is going to chat with me about coming when called, getting your puppy to come reliably each time you call them. This tends to be one of the things that my clients struggle with the most. It's like one of the top two behaviors that drives them crazy. And it's something that I love to do. I think it's so fun. So thanks for hanging out with me while I chat about this today, Ness. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you so much, Kelly, and thank you for asking me on. And I love this topic; it's so important. And yeah, teaching a solid recall is fun. It should be fun. But Kelly, I think we really need to hear. You've been doing all these summer interviews, and we're hearing from all these other speakers. Tell me about you. Like, who are you? How did you get into dog training? What's your journey? How did you end up where you are?
Yeah, I don't know. Whenever you talk to a dog trainer, they always talk about some dog that they had problems with, and so it kind of started their dog trainer journey. For me, I've just been around animals my whole life, starting when I was 8 years old. My first 4-H project was a rabbit, and then as I got older, my animals got bigger. I got goats and I got cattle and I got horses, and of course we always had the family dog. So I kind of think that doing something with animals was always in my future, and it was not uncommon to see me with one of my show cattle for 4-H walking down the street, teaching them polite leash walking, which was always quite the fun sight with people, going by and everything. So that's kind of probably what I was destined to do from the very, very beginning. And puppies are my thing. Our family's raised 24 seeing eye puppies, plus our own personal puppies. We fostered puppies. And I know what a challenge it can be. And so I've just been on this mission to help puppy parents turn the chaos to calm and enjoy that puppy journey, because it's really short-lived. And I always say it's not something you just want to get through because of all the challenges and pains that you feel like you're having with the house training and the biting and the chewing. It really is a special time. And I love working with people and having them enjoy that time with their puppy and, just not getting through it. Let's have fun.
Yeah. And puppies are adorable. I actually wish they would stay puppy forever. Why do they have to grow up?
I know, like he's getting so big, and then I start to get like, oh, where's my little puppy? Like now he's a teenager. I love the puppy face. I'm a glutton for punishment. I love it. There's the biting and there's the house training and all that, but there's just really something special about that time, and I really do enjoy it. And I do miss it when they get older. So
yeah, when they get a bit older. Yeah.
yeah.
But today we are talking about recall. Obviously, when you ask your dog to come, they come. So maybe you could tell me it's a big thing for dog guardians. Obviously, it can, tell us why, actually, before we start, tell us why a recall is so important.
Yeah, it's basically a life-saving skill for your dog. We see, and if you're in local Facebook groups where you live or in your community on bulletin boards and whatnot, there's so many lost dogs. And if we can just teach a solid recall, we can get our dogs back, and then we don't lose them. I don't know what I would do if I lost one of my dogs. I don't know what I would do. When I see those posters up about the lost dogs, and then I start seeing them fade, and you just then you see new ones put up, and that haven't found their dog, I just don't know what I would do. And so having that solid recall is really important, because things happen. Somebody comes over for the holidays and leaves the door open, and then your dog gets out, or a contractor comes to your house and leaves the gate open in the backyard, or something happens and your dog gets loose at the park. That is a time that you want to be able to get your dog back. So it's basically a life-saving technique, but also sanity for people, right? When your dog's in your yard and you go to work, or you need to go to the store and your dog's outside and you want them to come, and then you're kind of standing outside for the whole neighborhood to hear you upset that your dog isn't coming. So for your own sanity as well. I always say that I teach a really good recall because I'm lazy. I have almost 3 acres, and when it's raining, I do not want to have to go outside and get my dogs to come inside. somewhere on the property. Or when it's snowing, I don't want to have to put boots on and go get my dogs when it's ankle deep, knee deep, or thigh deep in snow. So I always say I teach a reliable recall because I'm too stinking lazy to go get my dogs. whatever
Oh,
whatever
that's
your
funny.
motivation is. Whatever your motivation is.
Yeah, for sure.
So
And so obviously people often try to do this by themselves. What are some of the big mistakes that they make when they're trying to teach a recall?
yeah, the biggest mistakes that people make and why it doesn't work out so well for them is and we'll see if we might not hit all of them, but some of the big ones are asking their puppy or dog to come in an unreasonable situation. If you haven't taught the skill, it's unlikely your dog is going to come when they get out the front door. If you've not practiced it and you're asking them in that moment to come, they're not going to do it. It's too distracting. They're gonna run off. So we always ask our dogs to come in these unreasonable situations, but we haven't practiced for them. We ask them when we want it and we need it, but we didn't really put the work in ahead of time to be able to get to that Olympic moment. Um, People also overuse their recall word, or they don't really train what it means, as I was mentioning. If you've got a neighbor who has a dog, I guarantee you heard them say the word come like 27 times to get their dog to come, because when they don't come the first time, you say it again and again and again, and you can erode the meaning of that. And this is why people say, well, my dog has selective hearing, or they're blowing me off. No, it's just that that word has no value to them because it's been overused. And
I guess it's a little bit like, you might draw the analogy of a wife nagging her husband. It's not a very nice analogy. And in the end, he just tunes her out. So she's going, la, 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 have you done this? Have you done that? Have you done that? Or a teenage boy or something.
yeah,
And eventually they're just like, I can't hear you.
yeah, every parent can relate to this who, if you've got kids or you've got a relative or friend that has kids where they talk about how the kids aren't listening, it's because it's the same thing with that. Absolutely. And I think not making it fun for their puppy. Like, people want this skill so badly that when it comes time to teach it, they're really strict about it. Like, I need you to come, I need you to do this. And they're
Mm.
interacting with their puppy in a completely different way. Whereas all the other times that they're having fun with their puppy playing, they're loose, they're fun, puppy's having a good time. And then when they go to teach this, it all goes out the window. It's just a fun game for your puppy. I love teaching this skill. I just think it's so much fun because it is also fun time with my puppies and everything. So,
Yeah. That's so important. I actually saw, this is years ago, like one of my neighbors that lived right up their street, like miles away, her dog got out. It was a standard poodle and was in the park quite near my property. And I saw it there and I thought, oh, I had a lead with me. I'll go and get it because I knew where it lived. She eventually turns up in her slippers and pajamas and her dressing gown. So obviously the dogs escaped the yard. And the dog would not go near her because she was so fired up and angry that it had run off, and she's saying, come, come, come. And it was like, oh, I'm not going anywhere near you. And I'm like, hello, how you going? Here's a treat. And got it. Unfortunately, when she got to it, she whacked it across the face.
oh no, yeah.
Yeah. And you can imagine, well, okay, she was stressed, so the dog's not going to come to her, but it's going to be even less likely to come to her now.
Right. Yeah, because that's not
I
fun.
wanted to say, what are you doing? But she was
Um,
stressed, I get that she was cross, but yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And when you think you lose that, you lose your dog in that moment, you might have all those emotions and everything, and they might get the best of you, but it's definitely part of the reason why dogs are not going to come to somebody, because that's no fun. That's not a party by any means whatsoever. Just like us, we avoid negative situations, right? We don't want to deal with negative situations and those consequences, and we actively avoid those because they're not fun. Our dogs are no different. Oh,
Yeah,
I,
it's sad, isn't it? But yeah, so we've got that. Is there any other biggest mistakes that you can think of?
um, and I think some of the things that people do inadvertently to contribute to the problem is basically what you just said there is um, that punishment part where we might be angry because the puppy didn't come, or the puppy didn't come quick enough, even if it's not an emergency situation. Puppy's out in the yard, puppy doesn't come. You call the puppy, you call the puppy, puppy finally is done sniffing the rabbit poo or watching the squirrel in the tree, and then comes kind of like, sauntering over. And then the puppy gets yelled at for not coming fast enough or
Mhm.
punished in some way, whether they get swatted or whatnot. And we're going to remember that for the next time. And so why would I want to come to that? That's not fun. Hanging out by the squirrel is way more fun than coming to the person who's cross with me all the time. Um, Sometimes this is a big one. When people do play with their puppies, they often play the chase me game where they chase their puppy to get their puppy to run around and get rid of some of that puppy energy. But in that moment, what we're actually teaching the puppy is running away from you is fun because it's a fun game. And so the next time you need to get your puppy and you go to go get them, they're like, oh, we're playing the chase me game. And they start running away because that's how you play with your puppy. I chase you, you run around the yard. I get all goofy and I, squat down low and I chase you. And so the puppy learns that that's a super fun game. And then when they get out the front door and you go to run after them, they're like, yay, we're playing the chase me game. And you're like, no, I need you to come back. But we inadvertently taught the puppy that running from us is actually the fun game, not coming to us. And so that contributes to a recall that's not very reliable and that selective hearing.
Yeah.
And always making the fun end. We when we want our puppies to call, let's face it, right? We need them to come because there's usually a reason. We have to go to the store, we have to go to work, we're at the park and we need to leave because we've got to get home, or we're at the river and it's time to go. So every time we call the dog to come, their fun ends. I'm outside having a good time, rolling around in the grass, basking in the sun. I come in the house. What do I do now? I'm in here. This is not as fun. I'm at the river. Come.
Boring.
Yeah, I get in the car. Well, now my river time is over and I'm in the car and then I come back home. This is boring. So calling our dogs to come all the time, even though we don't mean anything malicious by it, by association, they have learned that coming when called doesn't make good stuff happen. It makes, in their eyes, not good stuff happen. So all these little things that we don't think about contribute to why that doesn't happen. And again, like we spoke about earlier, calling the puppy over and over and over again. It's kind of habit. Like puppy doesn't come the first time, so we call again and again and again. And these things all contribute to why we don't get a reliable recall.
Yeah, that calling over and over and over again, it's hard not to do.
Really
As in,
hard.
you have to kind of think about it while you're doing it and say, oh, hang on, yeah, I made a mistake there.
Yeah, it's really hard not to do that. And, it's a little bit easier for us because we've been doing it for so long, but that doesn't mean that we don't sometimes get caught up in the moment and it might not slip out with whatever it is that we're doing. But when you're with a new client and you're talking about not repeating the skill name, they'll usually come back after like that last session when they're learning something. They'll go, I didn't realize how many times I said it. Like they were thinking, well, I don't repeat my words, but now that it's foremost in their mind when they're working on the skills, they're like, wow, I really do say it. Like sit, come.
Yeah.
It's just creature of habit to do it. Like I didn't get my desired result, so I'm going to try again. I didn't get my desired results. I'm going to try it again. But it's really important not to overuse those words because we can erode the meaning and then they're no longer valuable to our dog.
Yeah, so my husband definitely thinks puppies come pre-programmed with sit. He thinks all puppies know sit. And if they don't, again, exactly what you're saying, sit. I'm like, just stop.
Yeah, that's the big one. It's always sit, because if we say it differently, then maybe you'll understand it better if I say it a different way.
Yeah.
And if puppies came pre-programmed, that would be awesome. How easy would that be for all of us?
Oh my goodness, yeah, but unfortunately they don't. But so you talked about things that contribute to the dog not coming. I imagine one of them would be, as you said, they're having so much fun in the environment that you're not as fun, you're not as interesting, so they don't want to come to you. So how do people counteract that?
Yeah, you're competing with everything in the environment. And this is why this skill, along with loose leash walking, those are like the two top things that people struggle with the most. The moment you walk outside and you set foot on that front porch or your back or wherever it is that you go out your door, you're at a disadvantage because everything else is exciting and you are boring. No offense, but you are boring. They are with you all the time. You're old news. Outside is a whole sensory overload for them, whether it's the garbage men coming that they can see or cars walking by, other dogs, rabbit poop, deer poop, squirrels in the tree, neighborhood cat. You are
Kangaroo poop.
kangaroo poop where you are. Exactly. Yeah. Nessa's from Australia. She's got kangaroos, which I'm very jealous of, although I hear they're not nice.
Oh
um,
no, I mean they're just wild, so yeah, they're all right.
yeah. So you're at that disadvantage the moment you walk out the door. You're boring. You've got to make yourself more intriguing, more exciting. And you're in competition with that squirrel. Whatever it is outside, you don't compare. You just don't compare. And again, you can't take it personally because it's just fun and exciting for our dogs. We want to make sure that we make ourselves valuable. You can play that chase me game with your dog, but play it differently. Instead of you chasing the dog and making them run away with you, make it a fun game where they chase you. This is how we can start to teach our puppies that running to you makes fun happen. And what's funny is coming when called is one of the most valuable skills that people want for their dog for various reasons, whether they don't want their dog to get lost or, run out in the street and get hit by a car, or if you're lazy like me, you don't want to go in the yard and find them. It's so important to people, but they don't invest the time or use the right tools. And by tools, I mean treats to teach this skill. We kind of just expect the puppy to be able to do it. And if they come a few times and we ask them to come, we don't reward them for it. So they've made the decision to come away from the squirrel. They made the decision to come out of the river. They made the decision to come from the park. That fun ends, but we don't even reward their efforts for doing it. And behavior that's reinforced will repeat. So if we reward our dogs for coming when called, they're going to want to do it more often. And we've got to make it valuable for them. Remember, you're competing with the environment. You've got to be better than the squirrel. You've got to be better than anything else out there. And so not rewarding them or not using the right treats, and you want to use high value treats. And by high value, I mean things like hot dogs or bits of meatballs or cheese or other deli meats. Anything that is going to be super yummy. Those prepackaged treats just don't cut it. They're boring.
Mm-mm.
You're not going to compete that with a squirrel. Going to compete with a squirrel with that. Those high value treats are fantastic because they're soft, and so because they're moist, they emit a nice odor, which is great for their nose to get their attention. Like, oh, what's that over there? Okay, you have my attention. And we're not bribing them. We're rewarding them for a job well done. And the more they do it, the more they're going to do it when they get rewarded. It's kind of that simple, but we got to put the time and effort into it to do it.
Yeah,
The
I think
moment
a lot of people get caught up. Sorry, I was
okay.
just going to say on what you're touching on what you said. I think a lot of people get caught up on that. Oh, I'm not going to bribe my dog. Maybe talk about that a little bit, because I think that's really important that people don't get caught up
Yeah,
on that.
rewards are not bribing your dog. There is a way to use them. If you say, sit and you hold the treat out, down and you hold the treat out. This is where we often find that people say, my puppy or my dog will only do things if I have treats. It's because you've kind of made it part of the cue. And they're looking at it as the promise, like sit, okay, here comes my treat. Down, here comes my treat. Come, shake the box of cookies. And so Sans holding up the treat and asking for the sit and the down and the shaking the box of the cookies, the dog's like, there's nothing in it for me. And dogs don't do things to please us. That'd be great if they did. But they don't do things to please us. And so we've got to find a way. I would say food is information. It's a way to communicate with our dogs. And if you ask them for whatever the skill is, and in this case, coming when called, you get them to come to you, then you bring the rewards out. You're rewarding for a job well done. You're not bribing them by shaking the cookies or, crinkling the deli wrapper for the cheese. you know, that's a little bit bribing because the dog's looking at you, and the next time you want them to come, they're going to look at you and go, what you got? What you got? What you got? And then it might be the box of cookies doesn't do it because there's a squirrel in the tree. And so then you
Yeah.
go and you get the deli cheese wrapper, and the dog's like, "Oh, I like deli cheese." And so then the dog comes running for that. That's a bit of a bribe, right? Look what I got. Show me proof of life. But presenting the food after the dog does the skill is reinforcing a job well done. So there's a difference. It's not bribing at all.
Mm.
Mhm.
It's
And
like, would you go to work without getting paid?
yeah, absolutely. Can you imagine just doing stuff because, you know, somebody wanted you to do it and like it because you're supposed to do it? No. No. Yeah, we've got to pay our dogs and pay them out big for coming when called, because again, this is one of the most important skills that people want. And then they get a little bit chintzy with it. They don't use enough treats, or they don't use any treats at all. And then they expect their dog to be able to do it in all these different scenarios. And your backyard is different than the park and everywhere in between. These are different skill levels. We've got kindergarten, we've got grade school, we've got middle school, high school, grad school. These are all different levels of difficulty to train coming when called. And just because your puppy comes a couple times in the backyard doesn't mean they're going to come in the front yard, doesn't mean they're going to come back at the park. And we've got to really install this behavior at all these different levels in order to get that really reliable recall that we want. We just want to keep it a fun game. It's one of my favorite things to teach from the moments my puppies come home, just outside goofing around playing with them. Every time they run over to me, they get rewarded. If I'm outside scooping poop in the yard and I make some fun sounds and they come running over to me, I reward it. And so I'm making me valuable in the environment. You want to be the giver of the good things because the environment is giving your dog reinforcement every time you go outside by chasing that squirrel, eating that deer poop, whatever it is. Your dog is getting the good stuff from the environment, and they're not getting anything good from you.
Yeah, and I guess it's interesting what you're saying about the school levels. So
Yeah.
I guess if you're in primary school, I know you call it different stuff over there,
Yeah.
but you know, you've got your 1 + 1 = 2 kind of mathematical equation. But then as you go up, you might be doing algebra or calculus, and their base would be the distractions in the environment getting harder and harder for the dog.
Yeah, because it's so much easier to do things in your house. There's no squirrels in here. I mean, unless somebody's got squirrels. I did know somebody who had a raccoon once, but there's nothing going on in here. So you're pretty cool in the house, right? Because there's nothing else going on. Just hanging over here by the couch. Okay, yeah, sure, that's easy. Your backyard, much harder. There's lots of stuff out in your backyard. And your front yard is not the same as your backyard. It's not just flipped. There's different stuff out front. And depending on where you live, it's going to vary. So if you live in something like an apartment or a condo, townhouse community, or a really busy neighborhood, your front yard looks very different than my front yard, where I live down a shared driveway and there's just a couple of houses. But there's still lots of stuff out there that's exciting because there's different animals and smells and things going on. That's very different. And then once you go for a walk in your neighborhood or on the street you live on, that's a whole different skill level because now there's different things that are grabbing your dog's attention. And once you put your dog in the car and you go somewhere else, yeah, that's grad school. You know, farmers markets, pet stores, the river, the park, all these different places. It's not the same. The dog is not going to be able to do what they do here in all those different places unless we show them how to do it in those different places with all of those different distractions. The distractions will get you every time.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we've probably covered everything in terms of avoiding, but you know, what people should avoid doing. But is there anything else you can we haven't talked about?
um, we talked about, you know, not making it scary for our dogs. And, you know, there's probably a lot of people listening going, well, I would never hit my dog. Um, but we can make it scary when they come and we kind of are irritated and we grab their collar in a harsh way, or if we get irritated and we kind of sound off at them. You know, just because we're not hitting our dogs doesn't mean that we've not made it unpleasant for them. You know, the learner gets to pick what's scary and unpleasant and everything. And
The
when
dog
we
decides. Yeah.
yeah, and when we make it scary by punishing them either verbally or physically. It's really detrimental to the skill and ruining the game for your puppy. It makes you scary, and you can then do what you call poisoning the cue. That's different than eroding it. Now they're going to just actively avoid coming when called because it means really bad things happen to me. So we just want to be careful and mindful what we do with that. And
Yeah,
again, keep it
sure.
fun. Just keep it fun. Mhm.
Keep
Uh,
it fun. Yeah. And I
fun.
think actually touching on your last point, you know, as you say, you don't have to hit them necessarily like that woman did. And you don't even need to verbally admonish them. It could be just that you're feeling tense because they're so sensitive.
Right.
Would you agree with that? Like they, you
Yeah.
know, like I know my girls are really sensitive to my moods, and I might not say a word, and they're like, you're not in a good mood right now, or not, or you're feeling anxious, or they know exactly where my brain is, I guess, where
Yeah.
my mindset is.
That's a fantastic point because, we talk about knowing our dog's body language, and people are not usually that good at it, but dogs are fantastic at figuring us out, way better than we are at figuring them out. So all of those things like you were talking about, your moods and how you feel, that is going to impact your puppy. Even if you don't say a word, your face is going to look different. The way that you furrow your own brow and you might wrinkle your nose and your tense body, all of that stuff. It's like no different like than riding a horse. They always are taught how the horse can feel what's going on all the way down those reins. Same with your puppy. Your puppy's going to know if you're like happy when they come or if you're like irritated and you're kind of walking all like stompy and mad and everything. Your puppy knows you're not interacting with them the way that you might normally interact with them. And so if you do that when you're playing these games, then puppy's gonna be like, yeah, that's no fun. I mean, think about it. You're always asking your puppy to make the choice to come to you and leave whatever it is that's exciting to them. And if you're not pleasant, if you're not rewarding your recall, if you're not making it worth their while, remember, dogs don't do things to please us. Why would they leave the thing that's fun and exciting? They wouldn't, right? Yeah.
So with puppies, obviously you're going to work on your recall, you're going to do the training, you're going to build up that foundation. What happens when they hit their teens? I know we're talking about puppies now, but sometimes they, what teenagers are like. They're
Yeah.
like, I ain't listening to you anymore.
Yeah. And at
but
some
I
point
guess
that
if
happens.
you're what you're saying is if you build those solid foundations, then everything's going to be a lot easier as they grow up.
Yeah, because and don't get me wrong, once your puppy hits teenager, you might feel a little bit like they are blowing you off. And it's not that they're blowing you off, it's just that they're going through a different developmental stage. And now this skill that seemingly was going well for them is hard for them because of the way their brain is developing and they're just not making good choices. and so it can feel a little bit like you're backsliding, but training is not linear. We don't just teach our dog and then they get better and better and better. It's very bumpy. There's speed bumps along the way. Sometimes there's big potholes, sometimes there's sinkholes. And we just have to kind of take it back a step or two and then go back where our dog was most successful, work with them there, and then build it up again. Just like us when we learn. It doesn't go smoothly, right? We've got to figure it out. We might have a challenge. We might get stalled. We get a little bit better at whatever it is that we're learning, and things then get easier for us. It's kind of silly for us to think that as soon as we start teaching our dog something, they're just going to get better and better and better and better and better. And recall is not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time because you've got to practice in all these different locations. If you only practice in your backyard at grade school, and then you expect your dog to come at the park, but you didn't work on any of the different levels in between or at that level that you're trying, it's not going to work.
Yeah. So before we talk about the amazing free gift that you've got for our viewers, or your viewers, is any final words on recall training?
One thing that I like to tell people to do is because sometimes people think that they don't say their recall word that much during the day. Do a little exercise over the course of the next couple of days. Pay attention to how much you call your dog to come. you might not realize how much you do it. It happens to every single one of my clients. Like, I didn't realize how much I actually say it, because it rolls off your tongue so quickly and easily. If you've got a puppy and you don't want to leave them in this room because, puppies left unattended is never good. You're leaving the room and you might be like, come on. You'll be surprised how much you say it during the day. And so do that little exercise over the course of the next couple of days and see how many times you say it. And one thing that we didn't touch on that this is reminding me of is we often need to change our recall word because we have overused it or we've poisoned it and everything. And so this is a great opportunity. If your puppy's not coming to you when called, or your dog's not coming to you when you call, start with a brand new word and make a fun word. Make it a fun word. It's really, really hard.
Banana.
Banana, exactly.
Monkey.
It's really hard to say like the word Shazam, angry. So make it fun. Make it a fun word. And everybody overuses the word. My dogs come to the word come because that's just how I taught it, and I didn't overuse it. And I always wish I taught them a more fun word, because it is more fun to say banana or something like that. And I always say when I get a new puppy, I'm going to teach them a different word. But every time we get a new puppy, we still have another dog that we already taught the word come to. So I just keep using that same word and everything. But I don't know, maybe one of these days but banana is actually my choice of words for coming when called.
Is it? Yeah.
It's a fun joke for us. So banana is would be my choice. Yeah.
Right.
It's also the example I always use when people say, my dog doesn't come when called, and it drives them crazy. And then I'll ask them, well, how much work have you done? What have you done? And they really haven't put any much effort into it. There's been no reward history or anything. And I always tell them, you could say the word come, but your dog doesn't have a Merriam-Webster dictionary, doesn't know what the definition means. By saying the word come that you mean leave where you are now and come to me. They don't know what it means. It's exactly the same thing as sitting outside and saying the word banana. It has the same meaning to them until you put a reinforcement history to it. Then it means something to them.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe you could tell us all about your free gift.
Yeah, so there's a lot with coming when called, and we kind of only touched the tip of the iceberg and gave you some things that you can do and things that you shouldn't do. I've got an entire ebook full of how to train a reliable recall. It's a nice booklet for you, a nice guide. It's going to go over a lot of things in detail from start to finish. And so I'm going to have that for you guys. That'll be below in the links for you guys to get.
Click the link below.
Yeah, click the link below. Exactly. So yeah, absolutely. And make it fun. Just make it fun. It's just a game to your dog. They don't know how important it is to you. You might think rolling over and playing dead and sit pretty and high five and shake and all that are just fun games. And these things are really important, but your dog doesn't know the difference between them. They don't know that high five is less important to you than down. They don't know that roll over is less important to you than coming when called. They're just all tricks to your dogs, and teach them all the same way. You'll be much more successful.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, Kelly, it's been nice talking to you.
It's great hanging out with you.
Putting you in the hot seat for a change.
Yeah, and I love talking about coming when called. I could talk about it all day. It's like I said, it's one of my favorite things to teach, and I just think it's super fun. So I want everybody to love teaching their dog to come when called and have fun with it. Excellent. Well, thanks again for being with me today, Ness. It was fun chatting with you and putting me in the hot seat. And all the puppy parents out there, I really want to thank you for joining me, not only for my session today, but for being with me and all my fabulous guest speakers these past 2 weeks, and wanting to do the very best for your puppy. The fact that you're here means you want to learn, you want to do better. And I love that, because this is what this event has set out for me to do. Oh my gosh, I might get teary. This was a big project for me that I really wanted to do for everybody. And so I'm just so excited and delighted that you're here. Thanks for being here. And don't forget to grab my gift for you guys in the links below. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.